that church. There's so many churches. Preacher, there's no reason to have any kind of strategy of expanding multi-site. No reason to have any strategy for church planting. No reason to have any strategy of doing anything beyond here. There are churches everywhere. And on top of that, everybody's saved in South Carolina. Now, that's crazy. I know most of you are saying, well, that's ludicrous. But you'd be amazed how many conversations I've had with people who think that everybody in the Bible Belt is saved. You are going to be shocked if you think that. Because statistically speaking, I want to share with you some things. Our long-term vision definitely would include a multi-site presence across the upstate. I believe we have to have, and I'm talking about a long-term vision, something God is calling us to. God is going to make a way. He's going to help us build a strategy. He's going to lead us specific steps to making sure that we are intentional and wise in our steps so that we don't do things that are foolish or waste God's resources. We want to make sure we do it right, but at the same time, we don't want to neglect the region. And you may say, why? And let me give you some examples. In our state, did you know in our state of South Carolina, there are 4.5 million people who live in this state. That is a lot of people. 4.5 million people live in South Carolina. Approximately, check the North American Mission Board website this week to make sure I told you the fact correctly. Approximately 80% of those people are unchurched. Approximately 80% of 4.5 million people are sitting on their couch this morning or sleeping late and decided that church was not beneficial enough, or maybe even they don't believe in Jesus Christ enough to worship. So that's a lot of people. You're talking about 80% of 4.5 million people. Now we have 2,116 churches that are Southern Baptist churches in South Carolina. And some of y'all may say, well, that is a lot of churches. I mean, I've driven around South Carolina. That's enough. We don't need more than 2,100 churches. Some people may say that. Let me give you the statistic ratio here. Here's what we see. Of those 2,116 churches, if we were to all reach everybody in South Carolina, there would be no church that had less than a 1,500 person attendance on Sunday morning to reach every person in South Carolina. In other words, it would take 2,116 churches reaching 1,500 people each to reach lost people in South Carolina. Now you may say, well, that sounds like a doable plan. Here's what I know. I can't do anything about other people's disobedience. You and I can't do anything about other churches' unwillingness to do what God has called us to do. We can't make every church in South Carolina be obedient to the Acts 1:8 call. We can't do that. I can't even make a church that's close to me obedient to the call of Jesus Christ. But I know one thing, I can do everything I can to be obedient myself. And we as a church can be obedient to Christ ourselves. We can do everything we can. Preacher, is there any way we'd reach 4.5 million people? I know, realistically, no. But if there's no way, if we did everything we could to reach every lost person in Greenville County in the upstate, if we did everything we could to reach them and we were unable to do it, man, some people say, well, why try? But I would say, why not give him everything we've got? Why not surrender everything we can, every resource we have? We're talking about the eternity of every man, woman, boy, and girl in upstate South Carolina. You may say, preacher, we're just talking about a few people. Listen to this. Here's how big of a deal it is. Upstate South Carolina, 1.4 million of those 4.5. So 1.4 million people live in the upstate. Of 1.4 million people in the upstate, 1.1 million, according to those statistics, 1.1 million are unchurched. So over 1 million people are lost in the upstate within this 9-county region we call the upstate. They are all, here's what we know, they are all 100%, statistically speaking, don't want to shock any of y'all, statistically speaking, 100% of y'all are going to die one day. Well, bless my heart. Amen. I knew that, but you didn't have to say it. Every one of us are going to die. 100% of 1.1 million lost people in the upstate are going to die someday. 100%. 1.1 million people are going to die. And 1.1 million of them, 100% of them, are going to spend eternity somewhere. Those are simple facts. I'm not telling you anything you don't already know. That ought to break my heart. Man, that ought to change the way I look at things in life. That ought to motivate me to care. God forbid we ignore 1.1 million people in the upstate. who, if they died right now, would spend eternity separated from God in a place called hell. That cannot be okay with me. That cannot be okay with you. We can't go to sleep at night and be comfortable in our own salvation and not be stirred to unrest over the dying, lost people in our region. We can't be okay with that. We've got to do something. We can't sit still. We've got to be motivated to share the gospel with people who are dying without Him. And so how in the world, I know you're sitting there going, "Wow, that's bad news." It gets worse. Because listen, we're losing ground every day. 96% of teenagers and 20-somethings, 96% of middle school, high school, college-age children are lost. 96%. Oh, preacher, you talking about up north. I'm talking about South Carolina. South Carolina. 96% of the upstate, teenagers and 20-somethings, are away from God and His grace. You know what? I don't want to be this guy of doom and gloom. That's not who I am. What I'm trying to tell you is, this is a worthy mission. This is one that we can't really debate. This is one we can't be okay with the condition of our upstate region. We've got to say yes to His calling. We've got to take the gospel to people who do not know it, because we know the cause. We said it last week. The cause is greater than the cost. And the mission He's calling us to is worth every single thing that we can invest. So we're losing ground every day. We've got to care about our future. We've got to care about our teenagers in Greenville County. We've got to care about our college students across the upstate. And we've got to do something about the lostness and the darkness of this state in this region. So we're going to produce a consistent campus model. When we're talking about multi-campus, talking about a Judea strategy, an upstate strategy, what are we talking about? How can we possibly form some kind of strategy? This is just a term, two different terms put together that I think explain non-negotiables, and that is celebration with substance. Celebration with substance. Anything we do as a church should be celebration with substance. It doesn't matter if it's another campus, it ought to be known by celebration with substance. It doesn't matter if it's a campus or a site, or if it's a ministry on the downtown campus or some of our other campuses. What does that look like? Celebration with substance. We celebrate because of what Christ has done in our heart and life. Why do we applaud when people are baptized? Why do we get excited when we hear about Jesus Christ? Why do we get excited when we sing songs of His grace and the transformation that has taken place in our hearts and our lives? Because we recognize that the celebration is because of what He's done. We're not celebrating because the preacher looks good, right? No. If that was the case, would nobody be celebrating? Amen? We don't celebrate because the music's good. Is the church got good music? Yes. But we don't get excited and celebrate because it was our kind of music. I hope not. I hope we don't get excited because it was just fun and we're motivated by, the excitement of the moment. And that's not why we celebrate. Listen, we celebrate because of the substance of the gospel of Jesus Christ. Someone told us that Jesus died on the cross so that all of my sin, which was, one sin was enough. One sin was enough to send me to eternal separation from God in a place called hell. One sin was enough. But friend, I had a lot more than one sin, right? And so do you. All of us are sinners before God. But somebody told me one day about this Jesus who died for my sins and gave me the opportunity not to stand before the Father in my own goodness, but to stand before the Father in His righteousness. That's good news, man. And I can't hear that news and stand still. Can you? It's got to do something. It's got to do something inside of us that makes us celebrate.